But it seems to be the bottom line is that the statute's pretty clear on not commingling the funds and making sure that the funds are kept track of and they remain separate, either in a general depository account with a paper trail, maintaining your books and assets, or in separate depository accounts. That being said, the landlord who maintains the security deposit accounts is entitled to a 1% administrative expense taken from the interest that is earned on the security deposit if it's maintained in an interest-bearing account. That's provided in Section 101 as well. So there may be a 1% administrative expense that would be that the landlord would be entitled to. It would be taken from the interest, and obviously there would be need to be a clear paper trail with regard to that as well too. Now for which type of units would require an interest-bearing account. Section 101 seems to provide some guidance on that as well. If there's $750 or more, and I'll take this right from Section 101 1-A. It's the first sentence right there. Whenever money so deposited or advanced is $750 or more, and is for the use or rental of personal property for a period equal to or greater than 120 days, the person receiving such money shall, subject to the provisions of this section, deposit it in an interest-bearing account in a banking organization within the state. So again, it's what's that definition of personal property? It seems to be that there is this language in Section 101 that if it's $750 or more and it's for a rental of 120 days or more, there seems to be some support that that should be in an interest-bearing account. Additionally, if you look at Section 7-103, that provides language in there that if there is a housing accommodation that consists of 6 units or more, then the landlord is required to put those security deposits in interest-bearing accounts. If it's not in a housing accommodation, it seems to provide support that it's not required to put those in an interest-bearing account, but the landlord may elect to do so. If the landlord does pay them into interest-bearing accounts, obviously you have to adhere to the requirements with regard to notice, with regard to remission of the interest balance, with regard to any administrative expense that's collected. So Section 103 provides that support that if it's 6 or more units, you're to deposit it into an interest-bearing account. Now, with regard to when you deposit that into an interest-bearing account, Section 103 provides information there about how you're to notify the tenant. What you're supposed to do is provide the tenant with written notice, letting them know the name and address of the banking organization where the deposit is made, and you let them know the amount of the deposit. That's in paragraph 2 of Section 7-103. So right in there, it provides that you are to notify the tenant when this security deposit is made and provide them with that notice in writing with that specific information. With regard to the payment of the principal balance or the interest, obviously, Section 103 also provides that guidance. You're to do so at the end of the term, right? And then Section 108 gets a little bit more into the specifics about when a deduction is made. So that section, that is your section that you're looking at, Section 108, with regard to when a deduction can be made for the security deposit. In instances, when would the landlord be entitled to keep part or all of the security deposit balance? That section is very clear on offering the tenant the opportunity to inspect the property at the beginning of the term, having the tenant review the property's condition at the end of the term. If you're looking at Section 1-A, paragraph D, that's the section I would specifically go to if you're looking to the requirements for notification of the tenant and allowing the tenant to review the property at the end of the lease term, going through and noting any defects with the property and noting specifically the reasons that the security deposit is being kept and what it's being kept for. So specifically in Section B, in section 7-108, paragraph B provides that the security deposit balance may be remitted for reasonable and itemized costs due to a few specified conditions directly in that paragraph. Specifically, deals with the non-payment of rent, damage caused by the tenant beyond normal wear and tear, non-payment of utility charges payable directly to the landlord under the terms of the lease or tenancy, and moving and storage of the tenant's belongings. So those are the specific reasons set forth in there to keep part or all of the security deposit balance. And then obviously it states in there that if there's wear and tear beyond normal wear and tear from a prior tenant, you can't credit the next tenant's security deposit for that purpose. If you look at section D, that gets into the notification of the tenant in writing for the inspection at the end of the lease term. It gets into notification of the tenant no earlier than 2 weeks and no later than 1 week before the end of the tenancy. That's specific in paragraph D in that section. And then the landlord providing 48 hours written notice of the date and time of the inspection. So that's at the end. Then after the inspection, the landlord will provide the tenant with an itemized statement specifying repairs or cleaning and the purposes of any deductions. So if the landlord is keeping the money for damage beyond normal wear and tear or any of these above mentioned reasons, the statute provides that you're to provide written notice of that, and you're to provide the tenant with the basis that you're keeping the money for, including an itemized list. So these are just some of the many requirements of landlords, but as it specifically relates to security deposits, keeping security deposits, applying them, these are some key provisions in the general obligations law that you should be aware of. Again, section 7-101, section 7-103, section 7-108. And I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning. If you have specific questions to your housing accommodation, your apartment complex, your single, if you're renting a single family home or something like that, I'd recommend that you go to legal counsel and again, confer with them about your specific situations or your issues that you're experiencing, and see what your legal counsel would recommend to you. There's good practitioners in the area who do this. That's kind of my final pitch there to, if you do need help, I recommend go getting help, because you all know, it's not getting easier on landlords. It's probably getting harder on landlords, especially with the good cause eviction law and the state of landlord tenant law in New York generally. It seems to be more and more onerous. And that's especially on the practitioner side too. So if there are any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, that's just, I guess, a brief primer as to where the state is right now of some of the security deposit requirements.
I have one question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So when you were listing off the reasons that you're able to keep the deposit, obviously we know about damages and stuff like that, but you mentioned that you could keep it for non-payment of rent. So if they owe back rent, you could keep that for rent towards the back rent.
Yep, it's very specific right in the statute. If you look at section 7-108 and you go down to paragraph 1-A, you'll see in subparagraph B, it's right there. It says the entire amount of the deposit or advance shall be refundable to the tenant upon the tenant's vacating the premises, except for an amount lawfully retained for the reasonable and itemized costs due to, and then the first one right there is non-payment of rent. So it's right there in the statute. But again, reasonable, itemized, letting them know in writing what you're keeping the security deposit for. If they fail to pay a month's rent and you tell them right there in your itemized statement, listen, this is the reason for it. That's what the statute seems to be providing for.
Well, that's good to know, because I think that in the past I had one eviction and the judge basically said that the security was for damages and that I would have to do a civil case against them for back rent and not use that. And so I've never done that because I thought it wasn't legal. So good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, that's the other thing too. Relatedly, I know I didn't necessarily prepare for this, but as you all know too, part of the, for instance, I'm sure everyone's experienced or has knowledge of a non-payment proceeding. Part of that is when you make your demand for repayment in a 14-day notice, for example. You're only necessarily entitled to and you ask for the principal rent balance. There's plenty of landlords that have other costs, fees, expenses that go, you know, that can't necessarily be recovered in a non-payment proceeding, like late charges, right, or utility charges or attorney's fees, all these other things related to a proceeding that might the lease might entitle you to, but you can't necessarily seek it in a summary eviction proceeding. It's very hard with that practice, especially in local courts in New York State, right? The judges do the best they can with it, but you're talking about a lot of judges with a lot of changes in law, and they deal with it, I think, the best that they can around, especially in the southern tier. I think there's a lot of judges that really care and try their best, but this, I mean, even from when I started doing these, everyone who went through COVID, you had to deal with the COVID rules during that, and the stays and extensions, and now the good cause law. I mean, it's a lot of changing areas of law. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was maybe a different holding from one judge to another. But in terms of going forward, I would recommend looking at Section 7-108 when it comes to security deposits and the non-payment of rent. Anyone else? Does anyone else have any other questions?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hey, Richard, quick question on the, you said a week before they move out, we get to inspect the property. Is this with furniture inside or without furniture? And then once they move out, obviously they're taking all their possessions. I have 14 days to give them a written notice if I'm holding back. But how does the statute work with when I inspect? I can only inspect so much if there's furniture in the apartment.
So I'm not so sure if the standard is based on the furniture being in there. But what I'll point you to, again, similarly with the last statute, if you look at Section 7-108, it's the paragraph 1-A, the one we were just discussing. Subparagraph D gets into those specific requirements, because I mean, listen, I can talk off the top of my head about some stuff, probably for better or for worse sometimes, but I like to dig right in there, because if you get in court, this is what you have to deal with: defenses and counterclaims. And I always find it best to kind of relate it back to the statute if you have to. Subparagraph D is going to get into what you're looking at, Joseph. Right there, it says within a reasonable time frame after notification of the party's intention to terminate. Maybe that's the end of the tenancy, or maybe the tenant's saying that they're going to vacate. The landlord shall notify the tenant in writing of the tenant's right to request an inspection before vacating the premises. That's sentence 1 right there. If the tenant requests an inspection, the inspection shall be made no earlier than 2 weeks and no later than 1 week before the end of the tenancy. So you're looking at basically a 21-day window there based on the statute. If they're saying I'm going to be out on the 31st, you're allowing them to inspect it the 2 weeks before that, the 7 days after that, and then providing 48 hours written notice of the date and time of the inspection. After the inspection, that is when the tenant will be provided with the itemized statement specifying the repairs or cleaning, and the proposed basis for any deductions from the tenant's security deposit. So there's nothing really mentioned in there about if there's furniture still in the premises. For example, landlords are generally entitled, I'm sure you've all done this, to inspect the premises, right? To ensure that if there's a health and safety concern, right? Or just to inspect that there's compliance with the rules, right? And there's reasonable written notice period required for that type of inspection. Similarly here, this contemplates the tenant requesting this inspection being provided obviously in writing with the right to request it, but then the tenant requesting this inspection. That's specified right in the statute right there. So there is no mention right there about if there's furniture in the premises or not. I think the mention there is just if the tenant's requesting this, and then the 48 hours written notice is provided. So I don't necessarily see the statute having a bar there about having furniture in the premises still. Mostly it's there again, another tenant protection that's provided in New York State law, allowing them to request this inspection if they so choose. So I don't know if there's necessarily a distinction with the property and the personal property and the premises. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah, not a problem. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Yep, not a problem.
All right. I think we are going to pass it to Matt.
All right. Yes, let's get right into it. All right. If someone could quickly go off of mute and just confirm that we're able to see my screen, that'd be much appreciated.
Got you, Matt.
Yeah, we can see it, man.
All right, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Richard, for that deep dive into New York tenant landlord security deposit law. Definitely a deeper dive, and I learned a lot myself. But today, I'm hoping to empower all of you landlords and property managers with some of the ease of, actually managing these accounts in an online platform. So let's get right into it. So we just heard how important these accounts are and how complicated, and how many laws are actually connected to them, and actually setting up the accounts today. We need to receive the W-9 paperwork from our tenant, go to the bank, set up the account, and make sure that we're in compliance. Seems easy, but life's always in the way, and mishandling these funds could end up costing you thousands, as well as impacting your reputation. And after that, we know we need to provide that notice, the annual interest if applicable, closing that account in a timely manner. I can tell you, as someone working on the Z Deposit support team for almost 2 years now, that after a landlord or property manager walks through that initial account setup, after that, they will have the confidence to begin running. And it's really fast adoption that we've seen, where they know that they have the power to create these accounts and remain in compliance. But let's get actually into the platform and walking through the setup of an account. In comes Z Deposit. What I have here is Z Suite's free and easy to use, fully online and automated platform where we can close, open, and manage these accounts. And you don't just need to be in New York to sign up, only your property. And so for the purposes of this demo, we're actually going to be walking through where I, Matt Jindra, in Chicago, Illinois, will be opening up a fake security deposit account for my tenant, John Doe, in Z Deposit Town, New York. First, I just need to provide some personal information to actually sign up on Tioga's Z Deposit platform. In the immediate onboarding, the individual signing up is going to need to provide additional personal information, as Tioga and Z Deposit need to know who we're doing business with. This will also be used by our support team to verify any requests in the event we need to update your phone number, email, physical address. I do just want to make a note that we do require an individual to sign up, as the business entity information will be added during the account creation. So that individual signing up should be the property manager or the primary controller of the entity. All right, after we've provided all of that personal information, we're going to be brought to our dashboard. And right now, we haven't done anything, but we can see we have the ability to pull some monthly statements But right now, with the dashboard blank, let's go ahead and start a new deposit. So immediately after pressing that button, we're going to be brought to the lessor information. And so we see we have the ability to choose between either a personal lessor or a business LLC. For the purposes of the demo, I'm going to open it under Matt's Test LLC. But at the very top, we do see if the business is anything other than an LLC, we do ask that you contact us. And always on the bottom right of the screen, either when signing up or when you're creating the account, there's going to be a little support icon that I'll point out later. By using that icon, either landlords or occupants will be able to look through our FAQ articles. But if you are using that during our support hours, which is Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern, one of our support agents will be able to get on a chat with you live to help walk you through this process. And so after entering in the business information and the business address, I will be signing off and entering my role in the company. This drop down here will allow you to choose a variety of different roles, such as the manager, a trust assigner, a bookkeeper. But lastly, we do need the controller information. And so we do see we have the ability for a U.S. resident and a non-U.S. resident. For the controllers and beneficial owners that are non-U.S. residents, we will require a picture of a passport. However, for the purposes of the demo, I'm just going to also be the controller of my own company. After signing off on that, I'll just need to enter the beneficial owner information. So we see here, and there's that little support button in the bottom right. We see here I'm prompted to add the beneficial owner information of anyone that owns 25% or more of Matt's Test LLC. I have not entered this information, and so we will just move on and get into the property details. And so I just need to provide the address, the city, state, zip, and the unit number. We do have the option to mark it as a single family. And because this is the first account I've set up with this account, I will need to create it. But going forward, I will be able to use an existing property to save some time during this step going forward. And now we get to the terms of the lease. So we see here that we have a security deposit amount of $1,000. According to Richard, that does pass that $750 amount. And so we would want to seek any legal counsel in the event we had any questions. But we're then going to enter the lease start and end date as it is specified on the legal lease document that we have. But we do see we can set it to a fixed term as well as a month to month. And to actually invite our tenant to this account, to prompt them to e-sign their W-9 or W-8 form, all we need is their first and last name and their email address. At the very bottom, we do have the option to receive the annual interest on the account in the form of an administrative fee. Last step is just to review. And so right now, we'll be able to go back and edit any of that information if I see that anything is wrong. And then in the top right, we see we can always save for later. And on the dashboard, there will be a large notice at the very top that there's still a pending sub-account. Next, after reviewing the details on the left-hand side, we will sign off on the LLC authorization. And like I said, this is solely for LLCs. If there is a different entity type, we would want you to reach out to us so that we can properly file the correct either trust agreement or corporation, whatever is necessary. And then over to the right, we see we're signing off on the beneficial ownership form. If there were any beneficial owners, we would see their information here, such as date of birth, name, the equity amount that they own. But we do see at the bottom, I am listed as the controller. And then in the bottom right here, we have the actual security deposit account application. And so we see at the very top, there is an account number that is created. And so this will be a completely separate account that will be held with Tioga Bank. However, you will manage this account solely through the Z Deposit platform. It's also important to note that any personal information from myself or my business will be omitted from the tenant. However, the tenant is invited to make an online account where they can also view these documents in an electronic method. However, at account opening, when we create this account, we will send out that physical notice for you specifying that this account is held at Tioga. It will provide them with the account number, the amount, and the interest rate, as well as the physical or primary address of Tioga. Moving on, we've signed all of our paperwork. Now we actually just need to fund this account. And so we offer two ways to actually create the account. The first is to fund from our, as the landlord's operating account. So we are operating under the assumption that you have deposited those security deposit funds into a depository account, which can then be used for Z deposit. The second method is to upload a check, where we'll ask that you take a picture of the front and back of your check. And we also support multiple checks. I'm going to use my online banking account. And so to instantly add our account, we do use a third-party vendor called Plaid to securely and instantly verify your bank account on file. In the event you don't wish to utilize Plaid, or if you don't have online banking, you will be able to reach out to our support team, and we have a manual process to add that bank account for you. After we've elected our funding method, we are actually going to send our email invitation to John Doe. And so Z Deposit will have our pre-made notice, but we also offer the ability to enter a quick personal note, which I usually recommend just to ensure that the tenant doesn't mark it as spam and disregard it, because we do want them to actually sign up and sign their W-9 or W-8 form. After sending that invitation, which is sent out for every single account, we do offer the ability to send an optional statement of condition. We offer this in the event that you don't have a process currently in place, but we would expect you as the landlord to list out any of the pre-existing damages. And then once we write out that information, we're going to go ahead and sign off on an official letterhead statement of condition form, where we're going to have the landlord's address up top, as well as the property address and the tenant name here. After pressing continue, we would e-sign this statement of condition here. This statement of condition is going to live with this security deposit account, and we're just about to get into that next. So that was it. We have now created an account for John Doe. But now if we would like to actually view some of those documents, we are more than able to just quickly go in. We're able to download the security deposit receipt, that statement of condition, as well as the account application and the occupant's W-9 if they elect to sign. And we do see up top with John Doe, we only have the option to view the account right now. Compared to Tenzing's account down below, there is a drop down there where you will be able to take action on the account to either add additional funds or close the account. After funding, we do have a holding period where we need to ensure that the funding has taken place before any additional action can be made on that account. But let's go ahead and click view and look at what lives in a Z deposit account. So we're going to see the account number, the amount, and all of that information that we just entered regarding the lease information. And then at the very bottom, we see the tenant info, as well as that the W-9 has not been signed. At the bottom, we see the forms and disclosures. We did just create this account, so that security deposit receipt is going to likely be cut by our mailing service, probably on the following business day, as well as being uploaded into the Z deposit platform here. On the right-hand side, we see the account transactions. And so we see the initial funding date, but we will also see the future annual interest payments, which are going to be paid out on the lease anniversary date or the lease start date. And so for this account, in the event that you didn't close it before 9/1/2026, our system will automatically send out the earned interest to the property address in the tenant's name, unless you had specified that you will be keeping that interest as the form of an administrative fee. As these accounts are held for many years, additional forms would be sent for the annual interest in the bottom under forms and disclosures. And if we did want any additional information on some of those interest payments, we do have the ability to download a monthly statement report for all of our Z deposit accounts. Let's go ahead and go back to our dashboard. We're going to go ahead and add more funds, but I would just like to point out we have the option to resend invite both on an individual account as well as by using this resend all invites. We can en masse notify all of our tenants and kind of poke them to sign off on that W-9 or W-8 form. Under Tenzing's account, let's go ahead and walk through how we can add more funds. Let's say he has elected to sign for another year. And so to add the additional funds, we can add more to the security deposit amount. However, to add additional funds, we do require that you do have a bank account on file. We do not allow additional funds to be added via check. But in the event that they are re-signing and you have elected to utilize checks, it's going to be really easy to close the account, and we just walked through how easy it is to open one up. Now let's actually get into closing the account. We're going to elect to release the full account balance. When we click that, we're going to be brought to a screen where we're provided the total amount in the security deposit in terms of principal and the interest. We see that that's broken down between the landlord and tenant. As you make adjustments on the landlord side, the tenant security deposit and interest amount will correspondingly change as you actually need to take some of those funds back for damages that Richard specified for us. Next, we have the delivery method. As the landlord, we have the ability to receive those funds back, either back into that depository account that we have on file or via a physical check. We will send this check to either the business address or the individual address that we have on file for you. For the tenant, by default, that check will be sent back to the property address. I know there's hopes that they would have set up mail forwarding. Usually not likely, so we do provide the option to enter a forwarding address. As we actually look in to review that account closure, the landlord will always receive an email confirmation of this closure, but we do have the ability to notify our tenant as well with that selection box at the very bottom. So after we close the account, I'd expect those funds, if I were choosing to have it sent via bank account back to me, probably processed in 1 to 3 days. Compared to with the tenant's check, we usually expect delivery in 7 to 10 business days. And that is what we are able to accomplish on the Z Deposit platform. However, I'd like to provide some additional notes for 1099 reporting and how the W-9s and W-8s of the tenants coincide with this. When a tenant elects to sign up for Z Deposit and sign off on their W-9 or W-8 form, they will have taken responsibility for the tax reporting of those funds. Without them signing off on their W-9 or W-8, the tax reporting would default to either the property manager or that business entity. Statements I had pointed out on the dashboard above, you are able to download those statements at any time. And after we close an account, we will be able to always go back and view those documents on the closed account. Those will always be associated with your account, and they will always live in the Z Deposit platform. For larger property management groups, we do offer a secondary user. However, we do only offer one in the Z Deposit platform. And so that would be a simple request where they'd likely call in, we'd get that authorization, and then we'd be able to add the secondary user who will be able to open and close accounts. However, they will not be able to use or add a different bank account, but they will be able to complete all other actions. Lastly, we have the bulk import capability. Some of what I just said will change with the use of a bulk import because we are assuming that you currently have those accounts set up and you do have that W-9 information. So in the bulk import, you can choose to provide the tenant's social security number, which will automatically have the W-9 attestation where the tax reporting would then fall onto them. I'm now going to shift really quickly over into how we can actually set up those funds and receive the security deposit. And so we have a sister platform called ZRent, where there is shared login across both the landlord and the tenants, but we also share the property info. And so it doesn't matter which platform you set up first. However, once you sign on to the other platform, you will be able to see that payment or property information. It's also free to use through the use of a Tioga State bank account. You have the ability to generate reports on your properties at any given time to kind of assist you with maybe your pre-existing processes for accounting. And those payments are going to take 1 business day to get turned around. There's lots of different labels for the payments in ZRent, such as late fees, your standard monthly payments, as well as for security deposit. That is all I have for everyone today. If there were any questions.
Matt, actually, this is Rick. I just wanted to clarify 2 points as you brought them up.
Yeah.
Just on the legal side, I just wanted to follow up. Number one, with regard to the $750 mentioned from Section 101, I do want to point out that this is the statute does mention that this is for the use or rental of personal property for a period equal to or greater than 120 days. The reason I wanted to point that out is arguably personal property would not equate to real property, as real property is specified in Section 103. However, I bring that up as a point because if you have these arguments that are made by tenants, right? Or if you have units that are furnished, for example, right?
Yep.
You think of this argument being made that, oh, my security deposit should have been deposited pursuant to Section 101 because it pertains to personal property. So I just wanted to clarify that I point that out for the landlords in the event that this is an argument that could be used with regard to security deposits. So it's just something to be aware of, specifically if you're looking to the requirements in the Section 103 dealing with the real properties. That's where I mentioned the 6 units or more, or having less than 6 units. The other thing I didn't mention that I had in my notes that I was going to mention, in Section 108, it specifies that the security deposit cannot exceed 1 month's rent. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that provision as well. That's in Section 108. But those are the only 2 notes I had. I just wanted to clarify both of them for the landlords on the call.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Rick.
So I just had a quick question. So
Yeah.
if we have, say, 2 units and one's 1,500 and one's 1,750, each of those would require that those security deposits go into an interest-bearing account, correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that I was
Um,
understanding that based off the legality that he was saying and then what you were saying.
And I will say our support team is able to assist you. However, we are not legal brokers, and so we do always point you in the direction of legal counsel. However, we are more than happy to, either work with you in a 3-way call on how to actually accomplish your goals within the Z Deposit platform.
Matt, I have one question also.
Yeah.
So the W-9,
Mm-hmm.
if you send them, like if they don't sign it, and then
Mhm.
if you send them another invite to sign it, and let's just say they don't do it, what, like when I sign a new lease, I have that form and at lease signing, so I can open my security account, I make them sign it. Is
Yep.
there a place that if they don't do it, that you could upload that so that you're not required to then have to do the reporting because you have that?
Yep, that's when we would advise you to reach out to us to kind of create a bulk import so that that W-9 information can be immediately set up.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
yep. The general process will be we will send it out to your tenant to e-sign. However, if they don't, we'd probably want to look into that bulk import or upload for the W-9 form that you already have. Well, all right. It was a pleasure meeting you all this morning and very happy to have shared the Z Deposit platform with you all. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Kim, are you going to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm just going to do that, Bob. Thank you. So my name is Kim Nisnik. I am the Treasury Management Specialist here at Tioga State Bank. I deal with all the electronic banking things, and I will be Matt's kind of liaison here through Z Deposits. If you have any questions that Matt wasn't able to answer, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be more than happy to answer those questions for you. I also have written procedures for everything that Matt talked about. So if you are interested, I can send the procedures along to you. I have procedures for the deposit side and for the rent side that will walk you right through setting everything up as well.
Yeah.
So please feel free to reach out. I can give you my number if you want to write it down. It's 607-589-7600. And my extension is 1502. So please feel free to reach out to me if you have any further questions. And if I don't know the answer, I will reach out to Matt and we'll get the answers for you.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody.